Good afternoon, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Pensions Subcommittee. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through our Council's website. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you are not addressing the meeting, writing "speak" in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you're in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or iPad. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write "leave" in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting, so we can keep track on whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly, taking their time and speaking directly into the microphone when making contributions. When referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. We have several important reports to consider today, and I anticipate we will deal with the business in our usual efficient manner. Mr. Evans, could we have the sediment, please, and apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We have an apology from the de facto Chair, Councillor Malcolm Johnston. We have the Vice Chair, Councillor Hislop, taking the chair today. On Teams, we have Councillors Blake, John Campbell and Dryborough. Not present at the start of the meeting are Councillors McGregor, McFarlane and Thompson. That's it in terms of the subcommittee. In attendance, members of the board, we have Councillor Barretti, Councillor Maureen Johnson, Mr Stainthorpe and Councillor Walters. And I note that Councillor Campbell has literally just joined the meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell, did you wish to say something?
Yeah, I was already in the meeting, Nick. What I was going to say was that Councillor Thompson's trying to join, but he's having technical issues, so he'll probably join as soon as he can.
Right, you are. If he's in the council building, we've had technical issues all morning, and I'm getting greyer by the minute. But hopefully it won't cause any issues this afternoon. I give approval of members' remote participation. Now move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Is there anyone who has any declarations of interest? Don't see any hands going up, and there's no one in the room. Now move on to item 3, minutes of previous meetings of 5th of December 2024. I think there's a typo in the papers. Somewhere it said 25, but it is 2024. Can we take these as a correct record? Have we someone who would move them, as I wasn't there? Councillor Barretti.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Did I hear you say you were doing agenda item 4?
3.
Oh, sorry, I'm having a bit of technical difficulties as well. Sorry, I'll ask if I have an item, well, just a point and note on item 4, but I'll wait.
Right, yeah. So on item 3, I noticed Councillor Driver put his thumbs up, so I take it that's moving approval. Councillor Campbell?
Oh, I wasn't there, Chair.
Right.
I was there, Chair, so I'm happy to approve.
Anyone otherwise minded? No. Right. Move on to item 4. Minute of previous meeting of Joint Pension Subcommittee and Board. That's the same one. That's not right. It'll be the meeting of the Pension Board, 27th of November.
Chair, before you move on from the joint meeting, could I ask you to discuss a point of clarification about what happened at that meeting?
Yes.
And subsequently. At the meeting, one of the items was about the new council's pension fund governance policy statement, and it has gone unamended through the various council processes and been completely approved. Now, it's just for clarification, in the body of the main document, it says that the pension board, where the pension board have the agreement to hold a separate formal meeting, this meeting shall be minuted, etc. And then when you look in the annex document, which is Annex B, which is the governance compliance statement. Now this is the document that goes to central government from the council regarding its pension fund arrangements. It says on the last couple of pages of that, that as well as the joint meetings with the pension subcommittee, the board can call its own meetings as and when required. So I just want clarification that that is actually correct.
Is there someone here who gives us an answer? Is that the correct procedure? Ms. Donaldson?
Thank you, Chair. In line with the regulations, it says the board can request a meeting, but the pension subcommittee would need to approve that meeting. That's what's stated in the regulations. So we'll need to make sure that everything, all the wording's consistent with that.
And what's the process to actually allow a meeting to happen in between two pension subcommittees if that was required or asked for? Would that be the discretion of the chair?
Yeah, as I understand it, it would be up to the chair of the pension subcommittee or the pension subcommittee to approve that meeting. Although there's nothing, as it was said in the previous meeting, there is nothing to prevent the board meeting, like calling a meeting and meeting informally. It just wouldn't be a formal recorded meeting. I mean, there's no harm in the board meeting to discuss the papers, as we said at the last meeting. There's nothing in the regulations that prevent that, and that is common that boards may meet like political groups do to discuss papers. But any sort of formal minuted meeting would need to be, under the regulations, would need to be requested by and approved by the subcommittee.
Does that clarify the point, Mr. Stainthorpe?
Well, it goes a little bit further than the policy document does, because I don't think there's any mention in it of the subcommittee chair approving meetings in between, approving board meetings in between subcommittees. I think it's the subcommittee that's supposed to do that. But if that's the process and that's what's agreed, then yeah, I'm quite content with that. Thank you.
Right. Work our way through these papers. Item 4 is the minute of the joint meeting of the board and the subcommittee. Take that as a correct record.
Chair,
Councillor Barretti.
sorry, I think maybe I think you said that there might be a little bit of confusion in the paperwork, but I'm looking, just to be for clarity, on page 15 of my papers. Is that correct? You're on that item?
Yes.
How many chairs are there in, because here it says on page 15, pension board chair, pension board chair, pension board chair, pension board chair. One of them is correct.
It's a typo, I think,
Type.
in the column, and we'll make sure that's corrected for the record.
Yeah, because clearly it's David Stainthorpe who's the chair. We are just members at that meeting.
That will be addressed for the record.
Thank you, Chair.
With that, take this as a correct record.
Yeah.
No dissent. Move on to item 5. Minutes of previous meeting, Pension Board, 27th of November 2024. Can we take this as a correct record? Mr. Stainthorpe.
Thanks, Chair. The new governance policy statement requires these to be approved by the Pension Board Chair in advance of being presented. Now that hasn't happened, just obviously a glitch in the system because it's a new process. But because of that, I would ask that both of these, this item and the next item, is remitted to the next meeting, because I've had a query from one of the board members about the accuracy of the minutes, but we haven't had a chance to discuss that yet as a board.
Well, with that, are the rest of the board members happy to actually put these on hold to the next meeting so that the proper process can be followed?
Yes, Chair.
Right, thanks for that. Move on to item 7 now. This report provides members with information in relation to the pension fund audit for financial year 24-25. This is the third year of Audit Scotland's 5-year appointment. Peter Lindsay and Amy MacDonald from Audit Scotland are here to answer any questions that members may have. So, any questions for the audit? Oh, Mr. Lindsay, are you wishing to?
Yeah, I was Chair. I was going to just give a brief run through of the plan for members' benefit.
Yep, that'll be fine. Yeah.
Right, thank you. As the Chair pointed out, this is our annual audit plan for 24-25, which is the third year of our audit appointment. Pages 36 and 37 of our plan set out the scope of the audit, our responsibilities as the auditors, and the pension fund's responsibilities. In terms of the audit of the annual accounts for 2024-25, our materiality levels are shown in Exhibit 1 on pages 38 and 39 of the plan. And Exhibit 2 on page 40 of the plan shows 2 significant risks of material misstatement. The first risk is in relation to the potential for management to override controls. And I would stress that this risk is a standard risk that is included in all of Audit Scotland's annual audit plans. And this risk also appears in the audit plan for the audit of the Council. Exhibit 2 shows our planned audit work in response to this risk, and I would highlight that we have not identified any instances of management override of controls at the pension fund or the Council since the start of our audit appointment. The second risk in Exhibit 2 has been included since the start of our audit appointment, and it relates to Level 3 investments, as there is a significant degree of subjectivity in the measurement and valuation of these investments, as there is an evaluation which are material by value. Our planned audit work in relation to this risk is detailed in Exhibit 2, and I would highlight we have not identified any issues in relation to this risk in our previous audit years. Pages 42 and 43 provide details of our wider scope audit work, including best value, and paragraph 21 highlights we have not identified any risks in relation to these areas. And finally, Exhibit 3 on page 45 sets out the audit timetable for 2024-25, and paragraph 30 shows our audit fee for the year, which is a 1.9% increase from the previous year's audit fee. Amy and I are happy to take questions from members on the plan.
Over to members. Don't see any hands going up. Councillor Dryborough.
Yeah, Chair, I mean, this is the annual report, and it's just for noting. Happy to agree with the recommendations.
Are there any other members? No. Looks like you've given us a good report that we all understand. So If there's nothing, we'll move to recommendations, which members are asked to note the Dumfries and Galloway Council Pension Fund External Audit Plan for 24-25. Members happy to note? No dissent? Right, so thanks for that, Peter.
Thank you.
Now move on to item 9, Local Government Pension Scheme, admin, 8, sorry. Trying to get through this before the internet goes down. Pension Fund Resourcing and Budget 25-26. At previous meetings of this subcommittee, members have received reports on the ongoing review to ensure we are appropriately resourcing the pension fund activities. This report provides members with the background to the review, the current and upcoming work that requires additional resource, as well as benchmarking information from the most comparable Scottish funds. A proposal has been put forward to increase both the administration and investment resource for the pension fund, which members have been asked to approve. In addition, an external audit recommendation from last year was to implement a budget for the administration of the fund. A proposed budget for 25-26 is provided at Appendix 4, which includes the proposed additional resourcing request. Karen Donaldson and Kirsty Shannon are here to answer any questions members may have. So, over to members. No hands going up. Oh, so now who's first? Councillor Walters, and then Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks very much, Chair. Obviously, I'm from the board rather than the committee, but I just had a couple of questions. On page 55, there's the discussion on 4.10. There's mention of an aggregation and legal backlog of 1,600 records, which, to be fair, I hadn't picked up on before. I just wonder whether this is a backlog that's been going on for some years or whether it's appeared over the last year. And if it's going down, because obviously we're being asked to put in quite a substantial increase in resources. So it'd be interesting to see whether that backlog is going up. That's my question for there. Thanks.
Shannon.
Thank you for that. There's always status 2 records within our membership, because as people leave the pension scheme, we need to administer those records. The difficulty that we have now is that they are increasing because each and every employment is treated separately. We end up with these numbers increasing month on month, and we really need resource to be able to tackle them.
Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Walters. Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks, Chair. And it's just on that specific point, looking at Appendix 4, is this the resource that you're asking for, and if we agree today, is that going to be enough to support what you've just said and get those numbers starting to come back down the way again?
Ms Shannon.
We've carried out extensive work looking at categorising the numbers that we need to actually tackle, and the intention is that with this additional resource, those numbers will come down.
And just on a further point, there's obviously some geopolitical problems, and I know our trust managers will try and find all those things out, especially what's happening in America, and tariffs and all the rest of it, and we, have a lot of money in those pensions. So again, just looking at that and managing the trust managers going forward, will that resource be enough to do that?
Ms Donaldson, do you want to take that one?
Thank you, Councillor Dryborough. And absolutely, one of the sort of drivers for the increased investment resource is absolutely recognising the additional role we've got to play in sort of responsible investment and all the sort of geopolitical risks. And I know we're the reporting requirements on those aspects that are increasing year on year. And we've obviously got, as well as the sort of geopolitical risks, we've got the sort of climate risk as well that we're being asked to report more and more on. And also as well, like even through like freedom of information requests, we get those on a weekly to monthly basis that are required and sort of responded to. So one of the drivers for the additional resources to help us manage that workload, but absolutely continue to work with all the fund managers and do more work with them to understand how they are managing those risks and enable us to sort of continue to enhance the reporting and meet our regulatory duty in that regard. So no, absolutely that the resource will go a long way to helping us improve that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just on page 54. It lists the resources that the department's looking for. I'm just interested to how we've gone from a position where we have 5.8 full-time equivalents to asking to add 5 more positions. So basically, you're doubling the size of the department. And it just seems quite a lot, and I'm surprised that there isn't an option. Normally, when we're council, if we're being asked to decide on something, there's normally options. This seems to be basically the option that we can either say yes or no to. So, is there not an option, for instance, that you might perhaps have less pension officers, or you might have less temporary, and that would address some of the situation? I'm just aware of the fact that obviously other parts of the council are under an awful lot of financial stress, and to be doubling the size of a department seems difficult. Thanks.
I think, well, I had the opportunity along with Vice Chair Enabling Customer Services to go around the pensions department, and it is a very small team, and with the additional workload that's being created now, this is what's the issue is. What we're looking for is 2 permanent in the administration and 3 temporary posts. So although they are looking to increase by a good number of posts, some of these posts are fixed term to allow the backlog to be caught up on. So Mr. Garrett, would you like to address the question from Mr. Walters, Councillor Walters?
Yeah, just to add to that, Chair, we've been conscious for a while that we are a bit of an outlier now in comparison to other Scottish funds where the resourcing has been increased in recent years, and we've effectively been trying to get by based on existing resources, and given the number of issues that are now arising, the increased complexity, that's not really tenable going forward. We've made this assessment, and I think what's presented to you today is what we feel is the kind of very much the lower end of what's required. It will still keep us at the lower end in comparison to the Scottish funds in terms of the percentage of internal resourcing to support the fund. I think I'm right in saying Councillor Dryborough just asked, is it enough? And I think it's the appropriate ask at this stage. We think it's enough to make really good progress and to implement significant improvements on where we are at the minute, but we will need to keep this under review. If it came out that this was more than what was required, Councillor Walters, we would obviously come back to members with that as well, but I certainly feel as though what's presented in front of the subcommittee and board today is very much at the lower end of what is required in terms of the requirements now facing the pension fund.
Councillor Dryborough.
Yeah, it's on the temporary resources up to 4 years thing, the question for this one. I may be out of date, but I thought that after 2 years at any position had to become full time after that. But you've got them doing this temporary position for up to 4 years. Perhaps there's somebody there for HR that can maybe remind me.
There, I can advise that employment rights accrue after stage of 2 years, and then 4 years they have the right to request permanent employment. Obviously, as part of this review, we will continue to review the needs of those fixed-term contracts annually, and we'll update them as part of our quarterly admin reports to Pensions Subcommittee and Board also.
Thank you.
Councillor Barretti and then Mr Stainthorpe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll leave my video off because I'm having some difficulties, but I think you recognise my voice. On that, what has just been said, and on point 46 of page 53, where it says suitably skilled, trained and knowledgeable staff, with the levels of knowledge that are required, financial knowledge required, what is the likelihood that we're actually going to be recruiting from our region? And is this likely that we're going to have to recruit from out with the region? And what kind of other potential problems might that pose, given that for other departments we've had difficulties to get people in to do these posts? Thank you, Chair.
Who'd like to take this?
Yeah, I can take it.
Mr Garrett?
Yep. I think largely we would be looking, as we do all appointments, to seek opportunities from within Dumfries and Galloway in the first instance. However, I think it is important, given the specialist nature of at least a couple of these roles, that we do look to expand that, so that we've got obviously exposure to potential candidates from elsewhere. But that doesn't mean that we wouldn't appoint internally, but I think we would look to do a mixture, but very much would anticipate that the bulk of this resourcing would be very much based in Dumfries and Galloway.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Mr Stainthorpe?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Chair. A couple of queries just for clarification. On page 63 and 64, you have current structure charts for the pension administration and the investment management accounting support. Now, when we look back at the information we were given in December regarding those structures, there are actual additional posts in the papers that are presented today. On the administration side, there's an additional HR business partner support in the current structure. And on the investment and management accounting side, there's an administrative assistant in the current structure that wasn't, neither of those posts were in the previous structures. So are the costs of those posts included in the new costings or not, is one query. The other query is regarding 4.10. All of the proposed changes to the staffing arrangements have been identified in the report before we get to 4.10. And then it says this, at 4.10, it says this review was also to include the potential to engage external report for this additional work. Now, the cost of that additional work is approximately twice as much as the cost of the annual cost of the temporary positions that we're putting in place. So I'll just reference the next agenda item in my comments. In the next agenda item, it actually tells you how much work there is for the MacLeod, or much potential work there is for the MacLeod issue. And it's quite substantial. Maybe in scope, possibly 12,633, eligible for an assessment for a recalculation, 4,460. These are big numbers, and substantially more than the 1,600 for this additional piece of work that was over and above the work that we're making temporary appointments to fulfill. So I'm just wondering if, when we're looking at this going forward, how often are we going to review whether it's working or not? Because there doesn't seem to be any sort of annual review process included in the report. I think that would be quite a useful thing to add into the recommendations if the subcommittee decides that would be appropriate. Thank you.
So there's the 2 points here. That there's a cost of, was it the HR officer and other officer that was mentioned, and with MacLeod coming on board, is that going to stretch this even further? Mr. Donaldson.
Thank you. I'll try and answer most of your questions. I might need to pass on to Kirsty or Isla for the last part. With regards to the structure and the comparison against December, I confirm that everything that we need funded is included in this report, and that it's not necessarily different. I think it's just the way it's presented. So in relation to the administration team first, obviously got the HR business partners, a sort of relatively new arrangement, but how we've sort of worked it is the pension fund pay and allocation of like HR management that covers the sort of HR manager and HR business partner, as in the management oversight of the pensions administration team. So that's why it wasn't kind of presented in that way, but we thought it was important in this document to recognise the input that Kirsty does have on the pensions administration team. And likewise on the investment side, I think the way it had been presented last time was a sort of 0.5 FTE kind of accounting technician or band 7 support, but we've just split it out to be accurate, recognising there's an accounting technician and a administrative officer. So it's not that it wasn't there before, it was just, I think in the December one it was more amalgamated together, but we have sort of tried to kind of keep these structure charts as detailed as possible, just to give everyone the sort of full picture. With regards to the additional work that was scoped out through securing additional resource, obviously it's made clear in the report that isn't going ahead, like probably for the reasons that you highlighted, that the cost of it was sort of more than the temporary resource, and recognising that there, even if we got external support in, they wouldn't have direct access to our systems, to our records, so there would still be huge staff involvement from the pension fund side to be able to give them the data they need to do that work. So we felt like it just wasn't a cost-effective option. So to be perfectly clear, we're not going ahead with that, and we're not proposing that external resource is taken, that we are going to do the work internally through that temporary resource. And with regards to the 1,600 sort of records that Isla had referenced earlier, I think I'll get Kirsty or Isla to correct me if I'm wrong in this, but that was in relation to dashboards, so there's no direct link to the MacLeod work in the next paper. The MacLeod work is another significant piece of work with, as you highlighted, 1,600 records to, or 16,000 records, sorry, to be reviewed. So the backlog that's recognised in this report is in relation to the work that we need to do in relation to dashboards. I don't know if Kirsty or Isla's got anything else to add to that, or...
Just to confirm that the 1,600 within this report is in relation to the dashboard work, and the categorisation of the work within the following paper, agenda item 9, is in relation to the work that's required for MacLeod. On the last point that you made with regards to the review, we will regularly review these categories and see how we are progressing through those areas of work, anticipating to report it within our annual performance report that comes to Board and Pensions Subcommittee, and as I mentioned before, our regular admin update report as well that comes.
Just for my clarity before I bring it back, my understanding, and I might be wrong, that Mr. Stainthorpe can maybe correct me, it was the fact that we're looking at 1,600 records for the additional staff here, but there's 16,000 records that need to be done will this be a further staffing complement that will be needed to catch that up, or have we taken account of the requirement to do the additional work from the one look at the staffing structure?
If I can just respond to that, yes, the paper that we're looking at the moment refers to the project area, the fixed term resource, looking specifically at these additional projects, if you like to term it up, with McLeod, and obviously the implementation and readiness for dashboard as well.
Mr. Stainthorpe.
Thank you, Chair. The only comment I'd like to make is that this report, having heard that information, is very unclear. And in some respects quite misleading, because it says at 4.8 each of the above factors have been taken into account in the development of the proposed revised arrangements. And now we're hearing that one of those, McLeod, isn't. It is very confusing.
Ms Shannon said it was addressed. The McLeod is in the temporary resource because it's got to be a period of work that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And the other parts, the dashboard, etc., that's the actual, or I think dashboard's maybe another one, it's a project. These are the project ones which are there for the temporary staff, whereas the permanent staff will deal with the ongoing workload. I think that's, could you just clarify that, Kirsten?
Yeah, I can clarify that. And page 64 of the papers actually outlines in the two categories around the two permanent posts and then the fixed term posts as well, relating to the areas of work.
Does that answer your point?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions on this report? Don't see any.
Chair, could I just go back to the structures chart on page, lost the mark now, 63 I think. Yeah, page 63. In the current structure, the pensions team, I'm assuming that's a line management structure that we're seeing here, as well as a grading structure. So the pensions team leader is managed by the HR manager. In the proposed new structure, it looks as though the HR business partner is going to be the manager of the pensions team leader. So I'm just wondering if that is the arrangement that's been progressed in this document.
There's no change to line management. In terms of line management, I do line manage as an HR business partner, the pensions team leader, and then report into the HR manager.
Right. If there's no further points, we move to recommendations. Members are asked to note the findings of the resourcing review undertaken by officers, agree the revised pensions fund resourcing arrangements as set out at paragraph 4.9 and appendix 3, and agree the 2025-26 budget for Dumfries and Galloway Council Pension Fund as detailed at paragraph 4.16 and appendix 4. Members happy to agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
Right. Move on to item 9, which is the Local Government Pension Scheme Administration Update. This report provides an update on the administration work plan, including ongoing work surrounding McLeod and collaboration with other funds. The report also updates on the ongoing policy development work, and members are also asked to agree 2 new policies: the breaches of the law policy and record-keeping policy, as well as note supporting procedures that have also been developed. Kirsty Shannon and Isla Herrick from the administration team are in attendance this afternoon to take any questions. Are there any questions for Kirsty or Isla? Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks, Chair. I'm presuming that the trade unions were involved in the arrangements of the new policies, and also looking forward to the internal dispute resolution procedure.
Who would like to take that one? Kirsty?
Not as part of these pensions policies, no.
I take it it's not a requirement, or is it something that's just been overlooked?
To my knowledge, all the current policies that are in place with the Pensions Administration Fund haven't gone through that arrangement as we perhaps would with other policies within HR.
It seems here that when we change policies within the council or within, you know, any other organisation, it goes through at least a part of consultation, not so much negotiation, but consultation with the trade unions to make sure that they're happy with it. But I'm just not sure if this is the case here.
From what I've been told, it's not current practice to actually do this, but does anyone shed any light on why it's not current practice?
There's nothing specified in the regulations either to advise of that process.
So
Okay, thanks.
it would appear that it's not a legal requirement to do that on these policies. So with that, is there any other questions? Mr. Stainthorpe?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just again on the internal dispute resolution procedure. One of the final parts of that dispute resolution is that either the appellant or their employer can put in an appeal up to 6 months after the decision's been made by the appointed person. I just wondered what the process was in terms of applying what the appointed person has said, given that potential for the decision to be overturned over an extended period of time.
Ms. Herrick?
Certainly, we need to think of it in terms of the employer. If you're a council employee, so it's the appointed person would then hear the decision made by that employer. And if it's an external admitted body or scheduled body to the fund, and they were making a decision as an employer, it would go to their appointed person. And within the regulations, then the appointed person would make a decision and refer back to the employer to implement whatever the decision was. And if the appellant remains dissatisfied, then they appeal directly to Scottish ministers thereafter.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just thinking of all the different permutations of that. If someone is given an increase, for example, in a payment or whatever, by the appointed officer's decision, the question I'm really asking is, when does that take place? Does it take place immediately, or does it take place after this 6 months potential appeal period is exhausted?
Thanks for the clarification there. It's immediate. In most cases, it's backdated to when the original decision was made. If the appointed person was finding in favour of the member, then the decision would be back to whenever that first decision was taken, or the action, the pension action happened at that point.
Just a supplementary question then. So if someone was given an additional payment and then the employer appealed and the payment was taken away, what would the arrangements be for them having to repay, if they did have to repay, that additional payment that had been given to them unreasonably?
Well, I'm glad to see that we've never had a circumstance like that happen. But if a payment an overpayment has been made, then we would have to seek to recover that overpayment. But obviously taking into account a person's circumstances, you know, in terms of repayment, as we would with the normal financial code, council financial codes.
Does that answer your question?
It does, but I'm thinking of all the permutations of this procedure that could effectively leave somebody, for example, let's say somebody's widow or a beneficiary after someone's died, maybe not a widow, but just whoever, and they, for example, get told, yes, you are entitled to the pension, and then later on down the line they're told, no, you're not. You know, makes it very difficult for us to do anything about that, and it might be a good idea of some kind of process within this procedure that makes it clear what would happen.
Is there any other questions at this stage? No, don't see any hands up. Right. We'll move to the recommendations, and would you like to add an additional one to see procedures put in place for... I suppose it's a difficult one because of the fact that it could be one of 1,000 permutations. And
I suppose the only thing would be similar to the last point, the last agenda item, where I'd suggested it might be an idea to have a review process included in the document at some kind of stated regular intervals.
Right, so with that, we're asked to note the progress on key areas of work within the Pension Service Work Plan since December 2024. 2, agree the new breaches of law policy and note the supporting breaches of law procedure. 3, agree the new record-keeping policy. 4, note the new internal dispute resolution procedure developed following internal and external audit recommendations with a review yearly, just to make sure that there's no issues, or 2 yearly. Just to have a look at what's happened and happy with yearly, just if there's anything.
Sorry, yeah, I was just looking at the paperwork. We normally have a cyclical review of policies where we would annually look at them to see if there's anything needing updated, and if so, we would add that into our work plan for that forthcoming year.
So, happy with that. Councillor Dryborough, you happy with that answer?
All right, Chair, I was just going to say that.
Right. And 5 is note the position on the response to the technical consultation on inheritance tax on pensions, liability, reporting and payment, published on the 30th of October 2024. Members happy to agree with the recommendations? Take silence as consent. Move on to item 10, pensions update and emerging issues. This standing agenda item provides an update to members on the current and emerging issues relevant to the pension fund. This report highlights that the implementation of the fund's updated investment strategy has been completed since the last meeting of this subcommittee. The paper also provides an update on the transfer out of a participating employer of the fund and other current and emerging issues. Karen Donaldson and Ross Fraser are here to answer any questions members may have. Any questions for the officers? Councillor Dryborough.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and it's on page 118, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Consolidation. I'm presuming that our estimate was close on to that, and there wasn't any issues with paying over.
Ms Donaldson.
Thank you, Councillor Driver. Yeah, I can confirm that the amount was in line with our expectations based on the sort of last, also with the last sort of valuation March 2023, so rolled forward from that it was in line with our expectations, and everything was paid across with no issues, and all the sort of administration actuarial costs in relation to all the work that was done are paid from Scottish Fire and Rescue Service as well, so there's no actual cost to the fund other than transferring the £6.6 million of assets, but all the administration costs of that transfer were met by Scottish Fire and Rescue as well, and there wasn't any implications on the fund in relation to that work.
Okay, thank you.
No other points? Mr Stainthorpe?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. My recollection is that it was the Scottish Fire and Rescue folks that, or Fire and Rescue Services that had raised the issue that led to the MacLeod decision. So have these amounts included any MacLeod issues?
Yep. Thank you for your question. So yeah, MacLeod is taken into account when the actuaries do the calculations on a sort of best estimates guide at this stage. So both actuaries, obviously Hyman's acting on behalf of Dumfries and Galloway Council Pension Fund, and the actuaries on behalf of Strathclyde both review all the calculations and come to an agreement. So yeah, it would be allowed for, yeah. So there won't be any further kind of claims on the back. That is them transferred now, so there shouldn't be any kind of recall of that amount at this stage.
So just to be absolutely clear, there's no way we can have any additional costs due to MacLeod as a result of this already having happened?
Yeah, no, that is all the assets and liabilities in relation to Scottish Fire and Rescue have transferred to Strathclyde now, so there shouldn't be any sort of recall on that from our perspective.
Councillor Barretti?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Page 118 has already been mentioned, the geopolitical scenario that we're facing, and in point 4.6 and 4.7 market volatility. How confident are you, if I just look at 4.7, that to recognise the fund is long-term investor in diverse portfolio divestments which are designed to withstand periods of market volatility? Have you a conclusion as to what this market volatility might look like over the next, is it months, years? Because clearly this market volatility is as a result of one person's, should I say, volatility.
Mr Campbell, would you like to address this one?
Yes, so I'm going to talk about what's going on in markets as part of the performance report later, but just specifically in response to that. Unfortunately, as ever with volatility, it's extremely unpredictable in terms of the length of time it might take and how it might go. It's particularly difficult at the minute, as was said, that it's due to one person, and it isn't just the fact that he's bringing in, say, these tariffs which cause the volatility. He'll then suddenly change his mind, he'll exclude certain things from them. So it makes it very, very difficult for businesses and investors to plan ahead in any way. So it's very challenging to know what will happen, which makes it very difficult for an investor, say, like the funds, to decide what we might do because of this. You could decide that, right, we're going to sell all of our equities, and then just after you do it, big trade deals are announced and markets rocket up again. It's very difficult to pick where else you might move the money that would then do very well if things went badly. So yes, right now it is absolutely taking advantage of the benefit you have of being a long-term investor to ride out the bumps.
Yeah, it's okay if I come back in, Chair. Having said that, what is the shortest period of time do you reckon that you might need to at least deal with some of that volatility, given what you've said, and I almost wake up every morning to think, oh my God, what is he about to see now, or what has just happened?
So can I just check, is that the question that, say, if we knew volatility was going to take place over the next year, is that long enough time to take action?
Yeah, I hope it's only a year, maybe not longer. But the fact is that if in some of his volatility he decides to do something and the market moves much faster than you can address, how long do you reckon you're going to need to deal with that exposure or with that volatility?
I think typically if we were to take a very strong view, and it would be difficult to take the view that, say, this volatility was around for the next, say, 3 years, that's typically the point where you'd say we should take some action here. Again, like, the challenge there would be, what action do we actually take to try and address this? But I think that would typically be it, given that we are investing for decades long time horizon. If you look back at the great financial crisis, the impact that had on markets, if you look back now at a market chart, it looks like a tiny blip. So right when you're in the middle of it, it seems terrible, but if you hold out, that's typically the best outcome. Focus on the long term when hopefully markets will recover.
No, thank you, Chair. I know it's a difficult question to ask, and I am sure that certainly over the next 7, 8, 10 months, we will be monitoring this and asking similar questions again. Thank you, Chair.
I think that's one of the things with volatility. It can be bad one day and good the next, and then terrible the next, and tremendous. So it's one of those things, I think, that we do need to sort of sit and hold our hats on our seats in case we do get the rough storm, but hopefully we'll sail through the other side. Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm looking at page 119, and at the top of the page where it was talking about the short working group, the short life working group, and it mentions there about a members' seminar. Now, further on down 4.12, there was something, because I can remember it coming to the review of standing orders subcommittee February, and also the full council on 27th of March, but I can't remember actually having that seminar that was agreed for the committee and board members. It might be an age thing, Chair, but I just can't remember. Did we have that seminar prior to, this policy statement coming to review standing orders and full council? Thanks.
Karen.
No, thank you. You're absolutely right, Councillor Campbell. Obviously, the Short Life Working Group met on the 18th of February, and the outcome of that said we thought it would be really helpful to have another session like we did before, like back in December before the policy statement came through committee, to have another session with the committee on board, going through sort of roles and responsibilities, like how the policy statement will work in practice. That seminar's not been arranged yet. I know I've been working with colleagues in governance on this. We've got some potential dates, and we were quite keen that the Scheme Advisory Board were involved in that seminar as well, to provide that secondary advice. Obviously, if there's any escalations from the board, it would go to the Scheme Advisory Board, so we thought having their input would be really helpful. So I think the last I heard, we were waiting on their availability. Obviously you'll understand the council diaries is very challenging at the minute to get slots, but absolutely we'll try and get that in the diary as soon as we can.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Karen.
And Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just on the general point about volatility and how we set a strategy that acknowledges, what that volatility looks like and what it's predicted to look like, given the, there's another 3 years or so potentially of a key person risk, if you like. But are we confident, and this is maybe a wider question just for, are we confident that we've got the right balance of that our strategies basically sound against volatility, or can accept between the various types of investment that we focus on, that we've got the balance right to, you know, to be resilient against such volatility, or is that, you know, is that something we need to review, given the next few years might be along the same sort of lines? Thank you.
Mr. Campbell.
So yes, I continue to believe that the balance we have now is correct. We've done a lot of work over recent years to increase diversification into different forms of assets and safer ones than equities. So we've got Bearings coming in later, but they invest in bonds. We've got infrastructure, housing. These are all safer investments. We last year undertook the actuarial valuation, which ran through a lot of different potential scenarios of what might happen in markets. And that would have included outcomes like this, scenarios where we really see big market sell-offs, and it was viewed that the current balance of assets was strong in those outcomes and was okay and was suitable. So I do still feel that we've got the correct balance here.
Great, thank you.
All right, there. Mr. Stainthorpe.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just in light of that answer, have we got any investments that aren't subject to volatility?
It would just be the cash in the bank that will remain pound value terms. It's subject to loss of real value due to inflation, but everything else is invested in markets where value will go up and down based on how investors are moving in and out of those markets on a day.
Okay, thank you. So are there any investments we could make that wouldn't be subject to volatility?
No, it would just be more cash in the bank.
Chair, if we go back to the meeting in June, there was a paper, I think it was from yourself, that said that there was an opportunity to make local investments, potentially, but that it would be difficult to do. In fact, I think you actually said it would be impossible to do, but I don't know if anybody challenged that or not, but I certainly would if I wasn't at the meeting myself, but I did read the minutes afterwards, or the papers afterwards. So are those investments we could make that wouldn't be subject to volatility?
So local investments is a big discussion point in the LGPS at the minute, particularly south of the border. Government want the LGPS in England and Wales to invest a lot more locally. I guess it depends on the types of investments you could make, because it's very broad. It could be in local housing, and housing prices, whilst can be steady, obviously can fluctuate. It can be into infrastructure projects. It could be lending money to local businesses. Now, in that case, it would be difficult to place a value on those. So because there wouldn't be investors coming in and out of it, the market value of that investment might look very steady, but it's simply because it's very difficult to price. Otherwise, I guess every type of investment like that would go up and down in value. It's whatever someone would be willing to pay for it on any given day. They might look steadier if you don't try to sell them because you don't know the price, but otherwise I can't think of one that would be very, very safe and wouldn't change in value.
With that, if there's no other questions, we're asked to note 2.1 the investment strategy update as detailed at paragraphs 4.1 to 4.7, and that the implementation of the investment strategy is now complete. 2, the current and emerging issues that will impact on the pension fund as detailed at paragraphs 4.8 to 4.13, and that further updates on these issues will be brought to future meetings of the subcommittee as required. Members happy to note these 3 items? Right, we are. Move on to item 11. Oh, Mr. Stainthorpe.
Sorry, Chair, it's just to make a comment on the Pension Regulator Code of Practice part of that report. One of the outcomes from that was that there was a request for the Pension Board members to put in their, what was it called? Excuse me, sorry. Declarations of interest forms. Now, I have prepared mine, but I haven't submitted it, so apologies for that, and I'll certainly ask all the other board members that are required to do that to get them in as soon as possible. Thank you.
Right, well, annual training plan. This is a standing item on the agenda and details the final 24-25 training plan. There has been some training attendance since the last meeting in December. Officers will compile the 25-26 training plan, which will be brought to the next meeting in June. Members are also asked as part of the report to consider any specific training they would like to see included in this plan. Ross Fraser is here to answer any questions members may have. Any questions? Don't see any hands going up, nothing in the room. Well, if we move to the recommendations, members are asked to note the record of training and training plan for 24-25 appendix and consider any training requirements for the 25-26 training plan in advance of the plan being presented to the next meeting of this subcommittee. So if there's anything anybody would like in the training plan, could they maybe contact Ross via email and he can look into seeing if we can get that accommodated within the plan. Now move on to item 12, any other business. I have nothing for public. Move on to item 13, consider adoption of resolution to exclude the public from the meeting in terms of section 50A4 and paragraph 6, part 1 of schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Members happy to agree this resolution?
Agreed.
All right.
Agreed.
Could I ask members who are on Teams to move to, is it the exempt item 1 meeting, and we'll give 5 minutes for everyone to move across.